Inside a quiet grocery store, little Chloe stood barefoot at the counter, clutching her baby sister in her arms. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I promise to pay when I grow up. Please. Just milk for her." The room froze. Shoppers muttered, some mocking, others pitying, but all waiting for Isabel Reed, the wealthy owner, to dismiss her. Instead, the millionaire stepped forward, something in her eyes breaking as the baby's tiny hand clung to her sleeve. Have you ever walked into a place that feels perfect? Where everything is just so. The lights are always bright. The floors are always shiny. And you just know that there's a place for everything, and everything is in its place. That was Summit Grocers. And for Isabel Reed, it was more than just a store. It was her entire world. Neat, orderly, predictable. A sanctuary she had built for herself, brick by brick, can by can. If you'd walked in that day, you would have seen her. Isabel, poised, perfect, dressed in a blazer that looked like it never dared to wrinkle. Her heels made this soft, confident click on the tile floor, a sound that whispered, "I am in control here." She knew every number on every report, every product on every shelf. This store was her masterpiece, her escape. And on this one quiet afternoon, as that beautiful, golden light streamed to the windows, turning all the floating dust into little specks of magic, everything was, as always, perfectly in its place. The refrigerators hummed a low, steady tune. A receipt printer chattered away. The air smelled like lemons and clean floors. Isabel was near the service counter, looking over a paper, adjusting her cuff with a simple, easy grace. This was her peace. This was her calm. And then the bell on the door jingled. But it didn't sound right. It sounded tired. Weak. Now, in a story, you might expect a drum roll, right? For everyone to stop and stare. But life isn't always like that. Most people, they just don't see. We get so busy with our own lists, our own lives, that we become blind to the small, hurting things right in front of us. But Isabel saw. Maybe it was the owner in her. Or maybe it was something else. An old, sleeping instinct that decided to wake up right at that moment. A little girl had stepped inside. She was so small, and she was barefoot. Her knees were dirty and gray from the hard sidewalk outside. And in her arms, she was carrying a baby, wrapped up in a blanket, so thin it broke your heart just to look at it. She didn't run. She didn't look around, all nervous. She walked carefully, slowly, like a person carrying a cup that was much too full. Try with everything she had not to spill a single precious drop. The baby in her arms made a small sound, a little wheezy whistle of a breath. Over by the flowers, 2 college students leaned in. One whispered, just under the store's music, "Oh man, here we go." Another sad video waiting to happen. His friend watched the girl, his eyes narrow. Total setup. My dad says they just want free stuff. Watch, she'll ask for something. The little girl, her name was Chloe, didn't hear them. Or if she did, she was too tired, too focused to care. She stopped by the milk cooler, and for a second, she just pressed her cheek against the cold glass door. Her breath made a little foggy circle on it. Her eyes were locked on the cartons of milk inside. Her fingers reached out, hovered over the smallest one, and then snapped back, fast, like the price tag was fire. She couldn't. She just couldn't. She adjusted the blanket around her baby brother, rocked him gently. His tiny hand opened and then closed, a perfect little starfish hand. And then she walked to the counter. She didn't have a basket. She didn't have anything to sell. All she had was a baby in her arms, and a courage so quiet it could break. She looked up, and her voice, when it came, was so soft, so careful. It was a whisper she practiced, I'm sure, in a dark room somewhere, late at night, hoping no one would hear. "I promise to pay when I grow up, please," she whispered. Her voice shook, but the words were clear. Just milk for him. Can you feel it? Can you feel the air in that room just change? It didn't get louder. It got tighter. It got heavier. Shoppers suddenly became very interested in the cereal boxes. A man in a work uniform shook his head, and a grumpy sound slipped out. "Yeah, right," he muttered, not even trying to be quiet. The woman next to him elbowed him. "Be nice," she whispered. But did she step up? Did she offer to help? No. She just stood there. They all just stood there. An audience to a little girl's brave, crumbling moment. The cashier, Dana, looked past Chloe. She looked right at Isabel, her eyebrows raised. Her finger hovered over a button on her register. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice flat. What she really meant was, should I tell her to get lost? Isabel put her paper down on the counter. She didn't look away from the girl. "It's fine," she said, her voice calm. But something was happening behind her eyes. A silent alarm was ringing. She wasn't seeing a trick. She wasn't seeing a problem. She was seeing the tiny, heartbreaking details. The way Chloe's skinny wrists were shaking from the weight of her brother. The way she pulled her shoulders in, trying to be smaller, to be less of a bother. She was standing between that baby and the whole world, a living shield, a wall against the cold. And in that moment, a memory, old and dusty and painful, woke up inside Isabel. A memory of her own small hands, empty. A memory of her own voice, asking for a piece of bread and being laughed at. The smell of food she couldn't have. The sound of a door closing in her face. She took a slow breath. She blinked once, hard, trying to push the memory back down. It was too loud. It was too familiar. "What's your name?" Isabel asked. Her voice had no judgment, no rush. "Chloe," the girl said, rocking the baby again. He hasn't eaten since last night." "Dana," the cashier was getting annoyed. "Store policy says," she started, her voice trailing off. "Policy says we don't give things away." Isabel cut her off, gentle but absolute. Final. Policy can wait. The lights above them hummed. Outside, a bus stopped and then drove away. Inside that store, time just stretched. It felt like everything had slowed down. Chloe didn't cry. She didn't wipe her eyes. She just blinked hard, and then she squared her little jaw. She was trying so hard to be strong. The baby, little Noah, made a soft, hungry sound. And somewhere in the vegetable aisle, the water misters hissed on for a second and then stopped. Isabel smoothed the cuff of her blazer. Once, twice. It was her habit, her way of calming down. Then she put both hands flat on the counter, like she needed to feel something solid. She looked at Chloe. She really looked at her. And the little girl looked back. And in that quiet look they shared, something passed between them. Something the gossiping customers couldn't see. Something the rule book cashier couldn't understand. The air felt different. Colder. Sharper. Like right before a thunderstorm. This was it. The moment everything was about to change. Isabel took a slow, quiet breath. This wasn't a big, flashy decision. It was a quiet, sure one that was about to change every single thing. "Okay," she said, her voice so soft but so clear in the quiet store. "Tell me about your brother." Every person in that market, every shopper pretending to read labels, every worker stacking cans, they all leaned in without even knowing it. They were holding their breath. Chloe's lips opened, but for a long, heartbreaking moment, no sound came out. She just shifted the baby in her arms, and little Noah's soft cry was the only answer. Finally, the words came. They were cracked. They were broken. They sounded like stepping on dry leaves. "His name's Noah," she whispered. "He's only 7 months. And Mama, she can't get out of bed anymore." Over by the coffee, an older woman shook her head. "A child shouldn't have to do this," she muttered. But the woman beside her, her eyes kind, said, "Just look at her. She's telling the truth." Isabel heard them, but her eyes never left Chloe's face. She saw it all now. The old socks, the thin blanket, the voice that was too tired, too old for such a young girl. And then she saw it, a little faded blue ink stain on Chloe's fingers. Not from dirt, from a pen. This was a child who still tried to do her homework. A child who, even in the middle of all this, was still trying to learn. The cashier, Dana, had had enough. She leaned in close to Isabel, her voice a sharp whisper. Should I call someone? Social services? The police? She can't just take stuff. There was a pause. The easy way out was right there. Follow the rules. Make the call. Let someone else deal with it. But Isabel Reed didn't choose the easy way. She chose the right way. She didn't even answer Dana. She just stepped out from behind the counter. Her heels were quiet this time. She walked over to Chloe, and then she did something that shocked everyone in that store. She knelt down, slowly, carefully. She got down on her knees, so she was right there, eye to eye with this brave, barefoot, beautiful little girl. The baby, Noah, made a little sound, and then his tiny, searching hand reached out. It touched the expensive fabric of Isabel's blazer sleeve, and then his tiny fingers curled. They found a hold. They held on, and in that moment, you could see it. You could see it on Isabel's face. That tiny, trusting grip, it broke her wide open. It melted years of ice, years of control, years of staying safe and distant. It reached right into her heart and touched a feeling she had buried a long, long time ago. Her breath caught. She swallowed hard. She didn't pull away. She let him hold on. And then she looked at Chloe and she spoke. Her voice was quieter than the hum of the lights. It was just for her. Sweetheart, she said, you don't owe me a thing. Dana the cashier stared, stunned. The people watching finally went completely silent. Isabel reached out and put a steady hand on Chloe's shaking shoulder. It was the way you'd calm a scared little animal. You've already paid me, Isabel said, her voice thick with feeling she'd forgotten. With your courage. Chloe's eyes, her eyes got so wide. They filled with tears that didn't fall. They just shone like stars. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just one strong little nod. Isabel stood up. She smoothed her blazer, a move that was now for her, not for show. And when she spoke next, her voice had a new kind of power. Not the power of a boss, but the power of a heart that is finally chosen. Dana, she said, her words clear and leaving no argument. Get a carton of milk. No. She paused, looking at the small, hungry family. Get more bread, apples, rice, oatmeal, anything we have. Pack it all up. The store didn't just breathe out. It gasped. Dana's jaw dropped. She just stood there. You what? You heard me. Just like that, the feeling in the room flipped. The mean whispers and the fake pity vanished, replaced by pure, total shock. And in some of them, maybe the first little spark of something like respect. As Dana, moving like a robot, started filling bags with more food than Chloe had probably ever held. Isabel reached into her pocket. She pulled out her car keys. A plan was forming. It wasn't a crazy idea. It was sure. It was certain. She wouldn't just hand this child a bag of food and feel good about herself. No, she would see it through. She would take them home. She would face the truth of their life. Straight on. She pressed her car key. Outside, her smooth black car beat back. The road ahead was already there. None of them, not Chloe, not the staring shoppers, not even Isabel herself, could see how much this one moment would change everything. The hum of the refrigerators seemed to get louder, like the store itself was holding its breath, watching one story end and a much more important one begin. Where we left off, the air was still buzzing inside Summit Grocers. Isabel Reed, a woman who built her life on control and order, had just done something that shocked everyone, especially herself. She'd knelt on that clean floor, looked a barefoot little girl named Chloe in the eye, and saw not a problem, but a person. She saw a courage that mirrored her own forgotten past. And she didn't just give her a carton of milk. She packed up bags of food, took out her car keys, and decided to take Chloe and her baby brother, Noah, home. The glass door of the store closed behind them, and just like that, they stepped out of one world and into another. The evening air had a little bite to it now. Chloe shivered slightly, shifting Noah in her arms, his little face peeking out from the thin blanket. Isabel clicked the locks open on her sleek, black car, a car that probably never parked where they were about to go. She opened the back door. It felt heavy, solid. She helped Chloe inside, her small body seeming even smaller against the plush leather seats. Then, with a tenderness she didn't even know she still possessed, Isabel leaned in and carefully fastened the seatbelt around Chloe and the baby, making sure it was snug but not too tight. Every move was slow, deliberate. It was like this whole night was made of glass, and one wrong move would shatter it. She slid into the driver's seat, the engine purring to life with a quiet, powerful hum, a sound so different from the shaky breath of a hungry baby. In the rear-view mirror, she could see Chloe's wide eyes looking out the window, watching her familiar world slide by in a way it never had before. Through the safe, warm windows of a nice car. For a few blocks, it was just the hum of the engine. Then, a small voice from the back seat, so quiet it was almost swallowed by the car. "Thank you, miss. I'll still find a way to pay you back. I promise." Isabel's eyes met Chloe's in the mirror. And for the first time that night, Isabel's lips curved into a soft, genuine smile. It wasn't a business smile. It was a recognizing smile. A smile that said, "I see you, and I know you mean that." "You already have, sweetheart," Isabel said, her voice warm. "You already have." And she meant it. That little girl's bravery had already paid for every single item in those bags 10 times over. But as they drove, the world outside the windows began to change. The bright, neat shops with their cheerful awnings started to fade. The streetlights seemed farther apart, some of them flickering. The well-kept sidewalks gave way to cracked concrete and patches of weeds. The air coming to the vents changed, too, now carrying the faint, sour smell of old garbage and dampness. They turned onto a street where buildings leaned against each other like tired old men. Graffiti tagged the walls, and windows were patched with cardboard or tape. Isabel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Her knuckles were white. This wasn't just a bad part town. This was a place of deep struggle, a place she worked hard to never, ever have to see. In the back seat, Chloe started to hum. It was a low, almost tuneless sound, a shaky little vibration. But it was a lullaby. She was humming to her brother, her cheek resting against his head. The sound was cracked with weariness, but Noah clung to it. It was his familiar, his safety. And that sound, that fragile, off-key hum, it was a key that unlocked another memory for Isabel. A door she kept locked tight blew right open. She was 8 years old again. Not in a nice car, but huddled on the floor of a cold apartment. Her mother was rocking her, humming a trembling, scared lullaby. Tried to drown out the sound of arguing downstairs, the fear of another eviction notice, the empty feeling in their cupboards and their hearts. She remembered that sound, the sound of a mother trying to be brave when she had nothing left. A single, hot tear escaped Isabel's eye and traced a path down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, but the ache in her chest remained. She wasn't just driving this car out of pity. She was driving it for that scared 8-year-old girl she used to be. "Here," Chloe's small voice cut through the memory. "It's this one." The building was the saddest one on the street. The bricks were worn. The front steps were broken, and the front door looked like it didn't close properly. Isabel parked the car and just sat for a second, taking a deep, steadying breath. This was it. She grabbed the heavy bags of groceries. Chloe, still holding Noah, led the way inside. The hallway was dark and smelled of stale cigarettes, and something else, something damp and old. They climbed a flight of stairs, each step creaking under their weight. Chloe moved carefully, expertly avoiding a loose board. She'd done this 1,000 times. She stopped at a door and pushed it open. The apartment was still and cold. A thin curtain fluttered at a half-open window, doing nothing to stop the evening chill. The main room was almost empty, and in the corner, on a mattress that sagged in the middle, lay a woman. She was too thin. Her skin was pale, almost see-through, and her eyes, when she saw Isabel standing there, they went wide with a panic that was immediately followed by a deep, shameful sadness. She tried to push herself up on her elbows, but her arms trembled violently, and she collapsed back onto the pillow with a defeated sigh. A harsh, rattling cough shook her frail body. "I'm sorry," the woman whispered, her voice raspy and weak. Her eyes darted to Chloe, filled with worry. "She shouldn't have. I'm so sorry." Isabel didn't hesitate. She put the bags of food down on a small table and walked over to the mattress. She didn't care about her expensive blazer. She knelt on the floor right beside the woman and placed a steadying hand on her arm. "Shoo," Isabel said, her voice firm but incredibly kind. "Don't you apologize. Not for 1 second." She looked over at Chloe, who was now rocking a fussing Noah by the door. "You raised a daughter who is braver than most adults I have ever met." The woman's eyes filled with tears that spilled over onto the worn pillowcase. She looked from Isabel's sincere face to her daughter's determined one, and a sob escaped her. It was a sound of relief, of pain, of months, maybe years, of carrying a weight too heavy to bear alone. Isabel looked around the small, cold room. She saw the emptiness. She felt the despair. This wasn't just about being poor. This was about being forgotten. This was about being invisible. And in that moment, any last bit of ice around Isabel's heart melted completely away. This wasn't charity. This was a rescue mission. She stood up, smoothing her hands down her pants. Her voice changed. It became the voice she used in boardrooms when a decision was final. It was clear. It was certain. It was full of promise. "Listen to me," she said, looking at Chloe's mother. "There will be food on this table tomorrow. And the day after that, there will be a doctor coming to see you. This week." Then she turned to Chloe. The little girl was watching her, her eyes huge, looking like she was waiting to wake up from a dream. "And you," Isabel said, her voice softening. "You are going to school." Chloe's breath hitched. "But my mom—" "Noah, I have to." "Not anymore," Isabel said, gentle but leaving no room for argument. "Not next year. Not someday. Now, you are a little girl. It's time for you to learn and to play. Let the adults handle the rest." The hope that dawned on Chloe's face was the most beautiful thing Isabel had ever seen. It was like watching a flower open up for the very first time. Her mother covered her mouth with a trembling hand, crying in earnest now. But this time, they were tears of pure, unadulterated hope. Isabel stayed for a little while longer. She put the milk and perishables in the barren fridge. She found a thicker blanket in the closet and draped it over Chloe's mother. She made a list of what they needed most. When she finally left, closing that broken door behind her, she knew her life had permanently changed direction. Weeks passed. The change at that little apartment wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet, consistent. Groceries appeared on the doorstep every other morning. A kind, no-nonsense nurse started showing up twice a week to check on Chloe's mom, to help her get stronger, to manage her cough. The eviction notices stopped coming. Isabel had made a few quiet calls. But the biggest change was in Chloe. And that leads us to our final scene. One crisp, sunny morning. The schoolyard was full of the chaotic, happy noise of children. Parents stood in little groups, chatting and waving goodbye. And there at the gate stood Chloe. But this wasn't the same girl from the grocery store. Her hair was neatly braided. She wore a bright blue backpack that seemed almost as big as she was, and on her feet were a pair of sturdy new shoes. Beside her, holding Noah, was her mother. She was standing. She was still thin, but color had returned to her cheeks. She was wearing a clean, warm jacket, and she was smiling down at her daughter, brushing a piece of hair from her face. The school bell rang, a loud, cheerful sound. The flood of kids began to move inside. Chloe looked up at her mom, who nodded and gave her an encouraging little push. For so long, Chloe had been the one giving the orders, being the brave one. Now, she could just be a kid. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders just like she had in the store that day, and walked forward, not with her head down, trying to be invisible, but with her chin up, walking into a new world of possibility. Across the street, parked quietly, was a familiar black car. Inside, Isabel Reed watched. She didn't get out. She didn't wave. She simply sat there, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel. And as she watched that brave little girl walk through those gates, something settled inside her, a peace she had been searching for her entire life. Just before she disappeared into the crowd, Chloe stopped. She turned around. Her eyes scanned the street until they found the car. She couldn't see Isabel through the tinted window, but she looked right at it anyway, and she smiled. A huge, brilliant, hopeful smile. And she mouthed two words, clear as day. Thank you. Isabel's own smile bloomed in response, all alone in her car. A single, happy tear rolled down her cheek, and this time she didn't wipe it away. She finally understood. Compassion isn't always about grand gestures and loud announcements. Sometimes it's a quiet seed. You plant in the dark, in the dirt, when no one is watching. You water it with kindness and consistency. And you have to trust that it's growing, even when you can't see it. And then one day, you get to stand back and watch it bloom into something more beautiful than you ever could have imagined. That little girl's promise, "I'll pay you when I grow up," had already been fulfilled. She had paid Isabel back with a gift far greater than money. She had given her a purpose. She had given her her heart back. The legacy of that one simple act of kindness had already begun. If this story reminded you of the power we all have to make a difference, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to see it. Tell us in the comments what kindness means to you. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that show the incredible strength hidden in everyday moments. Thanks for watching.